So, Eric,
it's hot out.
Yes, it is. You are an expert in all things protection, military intelligence. Give us your initial reaction of what happened on Saturday.
It's an abysmal failure. I think it's important for people to remember that world wars have started because of failed executive protection. Think of the Francis Ferdinand killed at the beginning of, and started World War I. Imagine what America would be if the assassin was successful on Saturday.
Centimeters away.
Yeah, I mean 2 inches at most. That anyone with any brain, with any training at all, would go to that site and say, that's the spot that's called the Sniper's Hotel. It's the logical place where a sniper is going to set up and hang out from. That much, the elevated position overlooking the spot with dead space, able to sneak in and get himself positioned. That it wasn't covered is beyond grotesque incompetence. And if people are not fired from this, then we know that then they're actually trying to be this bad.
Well, we can get into the consequences, but I don't think anyone will be fired. There might be some resignations where they keep their pension and all that. But no one was fired after Afghanistan. No one was fired after the Hunter Biden laptop. No one was fired after our handling of COVID. So why should we believe all of a sudden that mass firings are going to occur here? Eric, have we seen in the recent era, let me ask you this way. Since Ronald Reagan was shot in the 1980s, has there even been a firearm discharged at a president, former or current, let alone one being actively shot?
No, and the last one that had blood drawn was John F. Kennedy. Think of that.
Well, Reagan was.
Sorry, you're right. My bad.
Maybe I'm.
No, you're right. Nope, definitely Reagan. You're right, and that was a ricochet. It wasn't even a direct impact. It was the sixth round.
And he served out 7 more years of his term.
Correct, but that was, and you witness how quickly that team got him off the X. It was the 6th round fired of a 6-round revolver by Hinckley that ricocheted off, that hit Reagan in the lungs. They drew blood on Donald Trump. They killed someone standing right behind him. It was a serious round, obviously able to pop someone's head. You know, maximum sympathy to the family that lost their loved one, and totally unnecessary. It's worth also asking, do they have a do not shoot rule, a don't shoot first rule? Because there is lots of evidence that they saw something they were looking at, they were not comfortable with, but no one engaged with the shooter.
So I am the furthest thing an expert can be from this world is me, but I have common sense and logic and reason, and I live in this world a lot. Why was there not an immediate get Trump off stage order given when there was even chatter, commotion? This is where I'm very confused.
Or at least suspend the rally, put him in a position of cover until the situation is addressed. Again, it's grotesque incompetence.
I guess that's the answer. We're going to find it's incompetence after incompetence, I suppose.
Because they can say, well, we didn't have enough manning. Okay, there was a team around the president, and even after the shots were fired, how long did it take him to get him off the X? The X is where the enemy has decided to attack you that day, and you want to get your protectee as far away from that as quickly as possible. And they took almost a minute, and it was leadership and decision making. There's no excuse. There's not a money issue. It's not a manning issue. It's a competency issue.
So secondly, according to reports, regular civilians were pointing out the shooter in real time, and police officers, law enforcement, and Secret Service didn't act. Is that incompetence?
There's always going to be friction around that, right? If someone's bringing you new information and there's not a way to get it, maybe they're on the wrong frequencies, all the rest. But if you look at the decision made to not secure that perimeter, the obvious Sniper Hotel, right? It's what the term of art is for someone that has had training to say that's the logical place someone's going to set up. That's not a money issue. That's a competency issue. Getting the president off the X, competency issue, not a money or a manning issue. When you look at the level of fear and befuddlement in the agents, it's like they hadn't drilled that before. It should be autonomic. If X, then Y, then Z. It's machine-like, and they were anything but a machine that day.
The word autonomic is operative because it should be as if you are breathing, as if you're digesting food. You don't think about it. It's built into your being, your autonomic nervous system.
It's trained into being.
Should be.
Yes.
So that is what I want to discuss now. And Eric, I think you have enough time just to keep going for a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to tease this out. I'm thrilled that some of the agents put their life on the line and jumped on him immediately. And however, again, I'm far from an expert. I just want a quick answer. Did you see the high level of expertise or professionalism from those people that you would say that's the type of people I would use to protect a president or former?
No, because some of them obviously were trying to execute a plan, and a lot of others were standing around not knowing what to do. And I don't care if they were temporary detailees, etc., then drill that morning, then drill the night before, drill, and practice and dirt dive it so that you know what to do, so that the whole thing could have ended so much worse. And that's what's unacceptable. We cannot have that again.
So, Eric, let me ask this more crisply. One of the agents couldn't holster her weapon. Is that something that is a typical response?
That's not an ideal response, and that's something that you want to get through those nerves and that adrenaline rush while you're in training, so that it is autonomic. When you know you have to reholster your weapon, you know exactly where that is and how that feels every time. And that is just an evidence of the wrong people in the wrong circumstance, and they're overwhelmed. That's called condition black.
So let me ask it this differently. What should that have looked like? Let's say that they didn't respond to the threat and Donald Trump's ear gets clipped. From that point forward, what should that have looked like?
They should have had him off that stage in less than 5 seconds. They should have created a protective barrier around him and then immediately moved him, whether he wanted to or not, off that X into a hard car and get him to a position of defense.
Here's where I'm going to ask something that I think is important. Some of those agents were not strong enough to be able to hold Donald Trump back. I'm sorry, Eric. It's just the truth.
Yes.
Donald Trump is a big man. He's almost, I'm about as tall as he is. He's 6'4", he's very broad-shouldered, and he was emphatically, there should be no circumstance where
I applaud him for his Teddy Roosevelt-like response.
I want to get into that because I think it was awesome. It was one of the greatest moments in American history of Donald Trump saying fight, fight, fight after being shot. I think he was saying another F word too, but we're not going to say that on air. By the way, CNN attacked him for saying he's got to tone down the rhetoric after he gets shot. But Eric, there should be no circumstance ever where a protectee is able to overwhelm the agents. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No. Again, it was clearly that team had not trained that drill, and they should have done that.
That's a body mass issue, isn't it?
It's a body mass issue, but it's also if the right people, the right holds, whatever, and if the president maybe had the confidence that of his agent in charge to say, we're leaving right now. I've never had that circumstance, whether that's a big lead agent or a small lead agent with the command authority. If they tell a person, they will leave.
Yeah, and it was clear that Trump was defiant. So even if President Trump is shot, the protocol, which he was, is you don't administer first aid right there. You evacuate and then administer first aid. Is that correct?
Situation dependent. If it's a cervical spine issue, whatever. But the fact is, they gave Trump a long time to almost collect himself, and it should have been over before Trump even had a chance to realize what was going on.
Let alone be carried off and.
Yeah. Again,
God forbid there could have been either a
secondary shooter or an explosive device or whatever. Yes. So again, that was the first feed. If it was a multi-pronged attack, it's again, get the protectee off the X, and they really failed at that as well.
I sense that
you even heard it in the radio chatter. What are we doing? What are we doing? Where are we going? It should not even be a discussion. If X, then Y, to move them off the X.
When you founded Blackwater, I imagine you had some former Secret Service that you employed and you worked with, and a lot of these guys. The ones I talked to, they are so speechless over this, and it's a humiliation for their entire
community. Sure, it's a black mark on the agency.
Greatest humiliation in modern protectee history.
Because their role had really nothing to do with Trump being saved. It was pure luck of bad marksmanship.
They made it worse.
Wind, and Trump turning his head and avoiding, just his ear getting clipped instead of his pons medulla.
Divine providence.
Exactly, the flutter of an angel's wings.
So those of you that do not know, Eric Prince, how do I best summarize your bio here? Blackwater.
I was a SEAL for a few years. I started Blackwater, and we were the largest private weapons training facility in the world. We did about 800 people per day. We shot around 1.2 million rounds a month. We trained hundreds of thousands of military, hundreds of thousands of law enforcement, from protective details from some of the most dangerous countries in the world, and we employed some very capable people. And we did 100,000 missions, protective missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, protecting ambassadors, diplomats, visiting presidents, all without anyone being injured under our care.
In all the protection that you've done, have you ever had a protectee be shot?
No.
And that's private security in active theaters of war.
Correct. Yeah.
Not Butler, Pennsylvania.
No, right. Correct. And the fact that if we had not secured, so what's 140 yards?
Yeah, you tell me.
Maybe
I was estimating
about where the A of the Trade Hotel is. Okay.
That's about what my estimate was.
So if we had not secured that, and we were going to have a public air event with our guy standing here, and we didn't know what the hell was in that building,
like a former prime minister or president,
exactly, we would expect to be fired, because it's professionally, it's an absolute and complete failure. So it's ludicrous, it's unacceptable that the lead agent of that detail that day absolutely should be fired, especially the advance agent, whoever set that thing up.
And they're blaming local police. Do you?
No, that's a cop out. Look, is the Secret Service responsible, or are they not? Who is responsible? The Secret Service is supposed to be responsible for protecting Donald J. Trump, and they totally failed.
So I now want to get into, there's so much to unpack here. So President Trump was defiant in his response.
Magnificently. He really mirrored Teddy Roosevelt, because Teddy Roosevelt was stopped at a campaign stop on a train. He was shot by an anarchist in the chest with a small caliber bullet.
Right down the street, by the way.
Really? Okay.
It happened blocks from here.
And the bullet went through his chest, and he sat there bleeding. But he gave his speech for the next hour and a half, and he said it takes more than a bullet to stop a bull moose. And God bless Donald Trump for having the same level of spirit and resolve. And I will remember that, and I think every American should as well.
In your professional opinion, should Donald Trump continue to allow Secret Service to protect him?
Well, that's the option he has right now.
He could hire people like you.
And there's a lot of complexities that go with that, because the left and big government hates competitors, and they hate to be shown up.
I got to interrupt. I get, but in the ideal, could you guys do a better job?
There's a lot of very talented people that could protect Donald Trump, or could supplement Secret Service to make sure that those gaps are filled and that the questions are being asked, and to call bullshit when things like missing a guy 140
miles. Radio.
Sorry.
That's okay.
To call nonsense when they miss the blatantly obvious place where the sniper is going to hang out.
Sorry, this pesky thing called the FCC. You and I, but you're
another regulator
who sends us an invoice for. We got it. Okay, we're good. See, we're good. They send us an invoice for the 7 dirty words. I don't mind. It's Joe Biden who invoices us. So for example, President Trump could have 5 or 6 guys like you that 5 hours before he arrives, they double check the work of the Secret Service.
Sure.
Someone would say, hey, who's on that roof there? Oh,
even to properly coordinate. Look, most of the best part of the most important part of executive protection is the advance work, so that you have a proper plan and you remove the gaps. The problem with law enforcement doing that is they tend to look backwards. And you want predators. You want to hire the most lethal predators to protect you, because they're going to look at it from the outside in to say, how am I going to get that guy? And they figure out how to close those doors.
People that are a little paranoid too. I mean, every possible threat imaginable.
Yeah, and just people that think offensively.
But also, the part of this situation that I'm sure we'll soon learn, he somehow got to the roof. A officer encountered him and then went back down because the rifle was...
And I saw reports that the officer backed away when the gun was pointed at him. Again, that's malfeasance, terribly. If you're a law enforcement officer and you're issued the badge and a gun, you're there to be a sheepdog, and you better protect the flock. And there he had very clear direction to protect the flock, not just the president, but the entire crowd. And if that guy really backed away in cowardice, he should lose his badge and his pension and all the rest. I think it's time to bring back public shaming for people that completely screw up and fail to do their jobs. I would have, if we weren't on radio, I would have given that a stronger epithet, but I will.
Thank you.
I respect I won't.
Okay, and Eric, this is one of the reasons why they hate you, is because you talk about better and more efficient ways of doing this. Let me ask this. in a politically correct way, which is not my reputation. Has DEI infused into personal protection and the military potentially put President Trump's life at risk?
As I said in a Twitter post that has certainly gotten some attention, anything that detracts away from merit and mission execution is an unnecessary distraction. And clearly, the Secret Service is not the level they should be performing right now. That was blindingly obvious on Saturday. Let's fix these issues before it becomes blindingly obvious and people die unnecessarily again. And again, being a protective agent is not for everyone. And there needs to be standards. They need to be adhered to. And I don't care what color people are or who they sleep with or which bathroom they use. I want someone that will protect the President of the United States and lay their life down when necessary.
Eric, how can people support you or follow what you're doing?
I am on X at Real Eric D. Prince, and they could buy an unplugged phone because we're here to compete with big tech.
Plug that. You were on the program before. Mention it, please.
We've launched a new phone platform completely independent of Google and Apple. If you're sick of big data and big tech and Big Brother collecting all of your stuff and leaking it everywhere, you can buy a new phone at unplug.com. Most of your apps works on T-Mobile, AT&T, and soon Verizon, and of course on Patriot Mobile as well.
Eric Prince, God
Thanks,
bless,
Charlie.
man. Thank
See
you.
you.